Good morning and welcome back to the 2020 Mayoral and Council Member Forum. I'm Gina Spagnola. I'm President and CEO of the Galveston Regional Chamber of Commerce. Really honored to be co-moderating with Michael Smith, the editor of the Daily News. Those of you that have been with us from yesterday, we've managed to interview our mayors in each of the districts, finishing up with District 6. It's a special district to me. They're all special, but this one's really special because it's where I reside. So thank you so much for joining us again, Michael. I think we've done a fairly good job.
I think so.
Yeah.
We've had a few technical challenges here and there and some logistical issues, but I think overall it's been a good event. And we're here with challenger Marie Robb. Unfortunately, incumbent Jackie Cole couldn't be with us. She's been following a very strict protocol to stay safe from COVID-19, and so she opted not to be here with us today. We're in a big room with a few people, and I think we're all going to be fine.
I think we're going to be good. We do want to thank the Sea Star Base Galveston for allowing us to use this phenomenal facility in this beautiful room for our forum. So thank you so much to the Sea Star Base. Hello, thank you so much for being here with us.
Having us here.
We really appreciate your time. I know everyone is busy and has lots of concerns, and I just appreciate you taking this amount of time to really educate us better and of course your constituents on why you for District 6. So we're going to start with a 2-minute opening statement, and then from then you didn't have to draw to see who goes first. You get to go first every time. It's just about you. And so go ahead, if you will, introduce yourself and your platform.
Okay. Hi, I'm Marie Robb, and I am running for City Council for District 6. District 6 is an unusual district in the fact that it covers almost half of the island. It runs from the west side of Pine Street all the way to the San Luis Pass. It also represents about 57% of the tax base. But when it comes to public safety, our road repairs, drainage issues, we get very little attention. And that is a problem, as we have ever-going increases in our tax rate. And that's why I'm running, to get us more services, especially when it comes to public safety. We have an annex on the west end that we could make a police annex, and to lower our taxes. You've heard almost every candidate say that people are getting taxed out of their homes, and we need to stop that. The city does have ample operating funds, and we need to lower our tax rate. I think we also need to focus on sustainable economic development like biotech, technology transfer, and I very much support that. I am on the technology transfer task force, and we need to take advantage of our port, which is such an economic engine for our island. Continue the projects on the west end of the port, and fill in those piers and look at every opportunity that is presented to us. So again, I'm Marie Robb. I served on council from 2012 to 14, and I'm here. Thank you.
Okay. You can always finish your sentence. You want to start with the first question?
Yes. So you sort of alluded to it in your opening there. So we'll start with this. And I gather that you think the city's tax rate is too high. And if that's true, I would ask, are you arguing that the city has plenty of operating money, or would cutting the tax rate more than it has been require cutting services, cutting departments, cutting people? How would you get to that lower tax rate?
I think the city, I think that we could lower the tax rate to a no new revenue tax rate without having to cut any services. I pulled the fresh numbers just this morning. The city is required by statute to have 90-day operating reserves. Our current operating reserves as of the end of September will run at somewhere around 109 days. The additional cost to the city from the police pension and the other areas is estimated to be about 1.5 million. So the city could lower the tax rate to 53 cents, not have to cut any services by taking 10 days out of the general fund reserve. That would still leave us in excess of the 90 days that were required, but give a benefit to our citizens and to our businesses. We all know what COVID has done to this island, to our county, to the state of Texas. We have businesses that are struggling. We have residents that are struggling. There was a statement that was made in the last council meeting is the reason we have to have more than 90 days reserve is so that we can advance money to FEMA if we are hit by a storm. And yes, we do have to advance money to FEMA when we're hit by a storm, but after Ike, the city established ample credit lines to be able to cover that. So we happen to be in a unique position because the city has done well in protecting their general fund, that we could lower the tax rate where there is no net revenue increase, benefit our businesses, benefit our citizens, and not cut anything from our budget. So that's, again, one of the things that motivate me to run for District 6 City Council. You're welcome.
Ms. Robb, you talked about, was it 57% of the tax rate? The
Yes.
tax are being paid from our district. And you talked about the lack of services out there. Why is that? Why? I mean, you've been talking and fighting about this. Not fighting.
I ran
championing is a better word
Yeah.
than fighting.
I've been championing this for
What
a
are the
long time.
obstacles? Because it's a phenomenal area with phenomenal people living out there. A lot are residents. So can you describe the opportunities and
Well, the opportunities, even if you look at the capital improvement plan for the next 5 years, there are very few projects for District 6. There are some well-needed road projects that are happening in Lake Madeline, which, Lord, their streets have been ready to collapse. And I was doing that when I was on council last. We just have to focus where our tax dollars are. I mean, the reason that the city was able to lower the 2 cents that they did lower it is because of all the new housing starts in the West End. And I think something that'll be very interesting that comes out in our census, and please everyone, do your census, that is so important, is the number of full-time residents that have moved to the West End. And just to take my neighborhood as an instant, we used to be maybe 30% full-time. We're probably approaching 50 or 60% full-time. And, you know, we just need to improve our infrastructure. It's almost, even when you look at a city map, they stop the map somewhere around 104th Street as if nothing exists after that. But we are the tax base of the city, and we need the services, and especially when it comes to public safety. They're touting in the budget now that they're not cutting any officers, but what they've done is they've taken away police cars. So when we have a big weekend like I forget what those cars, when those crazy cars came in and took over the island, well, yeah, they allowed at the last minute overtime, but they had to have 2 people to a car because they've taken away police cars. So we need to look at that, and we need to make sure we are budgeting the services for the people on this island who deserve them, which is all our citizens.
Thank you.
Ms. Robb, you alluded to kind of the changing demographics on the West End, and recently there's been kind of a very unusual, maybe unprecedented kind of chafing about vacation rentals on the West End. You've had some petitions and things like that. Do you believe that the West End is changing to the extent that maybe the city may need to look at regulating vacation rentals and short-term rentals on the West End, where it's usually been, that's the main game in town out there?
I think that the changes that need to happen. So what's happened recently on the west end of the island is we've had the companies that do the party houses come in, purchase some large beach houses, and say that you can sleep 35 people. So in the petition, say in Pirates Beach, there was a recent petition that came out, and people do not want to stop short-term rentals. And I have to say, I support short-term rentals, but there are ways to control them through deed restrictions or even city ordinances, and it's not something that's reinventing the wheel. A lot of cities will limit cars. So say if you have a 4-bedroom house, you're only allowed to have 4 cars. Or if you have a 4-bedroom house, then that's 2 adults and 1 child to a bedroom. I mean, there's ways that that can be done through deed restrictions without having to get the city involved. But there are some ordinances that will protect our short-term rentals without overdoing it and stopping them completely. Because quite frankly, that goes back to our property tax issue. And I can tell you, because I'm on all the Facebook groups in the different communities, you know, people, because of the property taxes, people are stating, if I don't rent my house for at least 2 months to cover my property taxes and the other expenses, I'm going to have to sell it. So again, we don't need to force people out of their houses with an increased tax rate.
Thank you, Ms. Robb.
You're
Very
welcome.
good, thank you. Our world has changed so much, and some things I'm afraid maybe forever will stay the same. But what are the things, you served 2 years, what's the unfinished business, or what's keeping you up at night with that burning desire to serve again? You have a really good, wonderful life, a full life. This takes so much of your time and effort, and you know, what is it? What are the issues in Galveston, or the opportunities that just...
Well, and I think it is opportunities.
Yes.
I think that we are positioned so well right now, even with the issues that have happened with COVID, that have set so many of our small businesses back. And we all know that small business is the backbone of our country, let alone our city. But it's again, especially public safety. We have had a rash of burglaries in Lake Madeline and Campeche and Pirates Cove and Sea Isle, in every neighborhood. And it's like, I don't even want to state the numbers of how many police are in District 6 at any one time, because it could just add fuel to the fire. But it's issues like that. It's surge protection. You know, the Coors Project calling for just sand dunes, and we have a little storm like Laura that hits us, and it wipes out every sand dune that we have. It's affected roads. I had our state representative, Mace Middleton, out yesterday afternoon so we could walk the beach, so he could physically see it and see what the issues are. But it's things like that that keep me up at night. And I think part of running for city council, you have to be slightly insane, but because it does take a lot of time.
It does. Thank you.
Ms. Robb, what do you think about the level of staffing at the city, or the staffing in generally at the city? You've mentioned too few services and resources on the west end in District 6, but including District 6 and the city at large, is the city overstaffed, understaffed, or are the employees overpaid, underpaid? Be as specific as you can about different departments and job classifications and things like that.
I would say if you look at the budget and you break down the different areas, we're top heavy. I think we have a lot of deputy managers. We have a whole new department, marshals. I'm still trying to get my hand around exactly what that department does, since they now seem to be functioning like the police, and yet we need more policemen. But I would say that we are top heavy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Which opportunities or issues involving the Port of Galveston and Pelican Island would you make a priority?
Well, very exciting. I was on a Zoom meeting early this morning with the GEDP, and Commissioner Clark was presenting on the bridge, and we should all have him in his prayers because he's suffering from bladder cancer.
Yes.
But the cost of the bridge, they estimate to be $1.5 million. Oh, excuse me, $1.15 million, or $150 million. And we actually are almost at that number with committed funds from the county, the IDC funds that the city has committed. TxDOT is, because they did a bridge study on the bridge, and they say the bridge is maybe one major storm from collapsing. Mm-hmm. They have committed $45 million in their bridge fund, bridge repair fund. We have TxDOT money committed. I guess A&M is looking at picking up the easements and perhaps covering all, or if not part of the cost of the bike and pedestrian path. Mm-hmm. And they are, Ken he's the head of the Transportation Policy Committee at the HGAC, and he is actually in discussions with the Port of Houston, and nothing is inked, but they're talking about contributing some funds. And Roger Reese, who our wonderful port director, who we need to do everything to make sure we keep that man on this island, I think the port might be able to chip in. He was requesting that they, get everyone to the table to finalize the numbers.
Thank you.
Ms. Robb, what do you think of the rates that residents pay for utilities such as water and sewer and garbage collection, and are people on the West End getting their money's worth for those services?
Water is definitely an issue because, well, I guess you'd have to go back through the years. There was the water bond that was passed in, I think it was 2005, 2008, where they raised the water rates, and we were supposed to have all the septic systems converted to sewer, which still hasn't happened. But when they came back in and they did that next big increase, it was primarily on sprinklers. Well, where do you see more sprinkler systems but in District 6, the west side of the island? It's not uncommon to even, and we use a system that's tied in with the weather system and so forth, to have $150 to a $250 water bill on just your sprinkler. And I believe, listening to last couple council meetings, they're now looking at putting in new meters, which they had done just 6 years ago. So I think we just need to be better organized on what we're doing with our water meters. And in the long run, if we can lower that even a few cents, that would make a huge difference.
Thank you.
On a personal note, and I think you know this, I think everyone kind of knows this, but when we moved out on Stewart Road for 22 Lemons Farm, we can't get Comcast or AT&T for our Wi-Fi, and we can see the box just right across the street. So it is difficult in District 6 to get the services that you really need, and so I would love to see.
Oh, I would love to see to make a phone call in our house, and we have, AT&T cell phones. You have to put your phone on airplane mode to be able to use the Wi-Fi to make a phone call. And that's something I've been working on for years, how we can get better utility services.
We need it. I think we're at the point where, are we, or do we still have money for or time for a closing statement? We still got some time. Okay, good.
Ask away.
Ms. Robb, how should committees, in your opinion, be appointed to the port, for instance, the arts, tourism? If you're serving in those positions, should you be a, quote, sort of expert in those fields, or at least know something about the industries in which you're going to be making decisions?
Undeniably, you want to get people who have experience that are pertinent to the board they're serving on. But we had two dirty dealings when it came to boards this year. One was the art commissions, where they literally changed everyone out without people even knowing that they were taken off the board. And the second was the RDA. And the RDA, the way that was done was just completely inappropriate, because the mayor had gone to the RDA and assured everyone they were being reappointed. And then it came down to the appointments, and boom, there was a complete wash. I mean, it's interesting if you look at the demographics of our population, this new RDA housing authority, there really isn't even anybody who's Hispanic serving on that committee. So you would look at demographics, and you would look at specialties. But there has been some very backhanded things that have been done on boards. And at City Hall, it should be complete transparency. It should be open communications. People shouldn't get a letter saying, oh, sorry, you're no longer serving on this board. So I think we should look at both sides.
Thank you.
Ms. Robb, you alluded to this a little bit before, but just more specifically, do you support construction of a ring levee or a similar structure that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers says is essential to the function of the coastal spine? And if not that, what would you be willing to support to make Galveston more resilient?
I support the concept, I guess the coastal surge protection, stopping the water at the coast. I think that the ring levee would serve to be a big bowl. And if you talk to the Corps, they haven't factored in the cost of redoing all the drainage. And we all know our drainage downtown is based on tidal flow. It doesn't take much than a hard rain to be able to stop, to be able for the city to, or some of the streets to flood a foot tall. I believe in stopping at the water at the coast, similar to the way the Dutch did it. We've been out there, my husband and I have gone to the Netherlands 4 times, 3 times with A&M Group, and then one time, at the initial time we went, was on our own. And it was funny because we were going by maps, and we were especially looking at the fortified dunes. And we found this one beach, and it's like, darn, I guess we just didn't find it. And then we went back with A&M, and we were standing on the fortified dune and didn't even know it was a fortified dune. But I think, especially in District 6, we need to look at, the Corps is currently planning on just doing sand dunes. Sand dunes has been proven all over our country, give minimal protection. Even if we went back to the geotube systems and they were installed correctly, like they were at Beachside Village, at Ross Navelli's, I can't think of the name of that, and down at the San Luis Pass, where they still sit in place, covered with sand, covered with vegetation, we could stop the surge. I mean, look at what happened after Ike. The city had to replace all the sewer, all the water line, the electric lines, and everywhere that didn't have a geotube. So I think
Your time's up, but I'm going to ask a question that will allow you to finish, if that's okay.
sure.
We're at 10802 Stewart Road. The proposed ring levee would go to the east of our property all the way to Diamond Beach. What would that ring levee, that wall, 4 to 6 feet, I believe, could be 8. I think it's a 6-foot wall coming from Teichman past our property through the Galveston Bay Foundation and that 500 glorious acres there. What would that do to the rest of the West End? What kind of system would we have to have where that would absolutely destroy that part of the island?
Well, yeah,
with
I
that wall?
mean, it leaves the beach side extremely vulnerable. We know what part of the issue was, and I think it was the rebound that did more damage than the front surge. But if you're able to stop the water from coming into the bay days before the storm, you'll have less of an issue. But you would have, I mean, it would affect our ecosystem. It will destroy homes. I think it would end up in a myriad of lawsuits, and the project would probably never happen. I think in the Corps system, they have maybe 3 or 4 large pumps, which we already know from what happens in Louisiana does not work. I think the way the A&M coastal protection is designed is what would make most sense. And it's been proven across the world.
Thank you. How are we doing on time? How are we doing on time, Robert? Okay, so we've got 10 minutes. Good.
Let's see. Should the city continue to charge for parking along the seawall? And if so, should it increase those rates?
I think parking along the seawall is a good thing. $25 a year to get your permit, or the small amount it is per day. I mean, we just put it on all our cars because if you're going to a crowded restaurant, you can park on the seawall and it makes life easier. But across the country, I mean, I grew up in Philadelphia, and we would go to the Jersey Shore. You actually buy a beach tag to go to the beach, even though the beaches are public, but you have to be able to pay for the facilities that are being offered. The one issue that does exist now is because of the charges on the seawall and some of the parks, it is forcing a lot of people into the neighborhoods. And we have to protect our neighborhoods that are beachfront as well. We've had issues of cars doubling up, parking on either side. You can't get a fire truck down the middle. Excuse me. So we have to come up with an answer on how we can protect our neighborhoods, as well as putting charges on the pocket parks so they could add more amenities, because nobody wants to see someone going to the bathroom in their dune or going into an unoccupied beach house and using their shower as a facility. But I think you could increase the price of the Seawall parking. One, it was approved by the voters, so it's something that has to be done. But then the city still is not in compliance with other things they needed to do on the Seawall and some of the parks. So hopefully that would be something I would take up initially, because it's just been floundering for too long.
Thank you.
This came up and it's under discussion. You might have already heard it. I just received it when I received the question from a member. Would you support the levying of additional user fees for beach access along the Galveston coast to capture revenues from day trippers? Currently, there's a fee, as you know, structure in 5 of those access points. And the proposal is to post, there's 40 of them. There's 44 current access points. Would you support charging for all?
Would support, but with the fees would have to come facilities again, which would relieve what's happening in the neighborhoods. But if you look at the San Luis Pass, where they even have lifeguards down there, since it's so treacherous, some people shouldn't be swimming, but they are. You just can't afford to keep providing those. The park board can't afford to keep providing those services for free. And it seems in like some of the pocket area, the parking on the beach is just expanding and getting out of control. So I think there is a way that you could do that to charge people.
You'd be open to the conversation?
I would be open.
Okay, thank you. I think we can ask for the closing statement at this point. You
Or
got
I
a
could
couple
sing
of
a
minutes
song.
for your
No.
I know, doesn't it go by quickly? It does.
It does, very fast. But again, I'm Marie Robb. I'm running for City Council in District 6, and I would appreciate your vote. I would also say in District 6, because we do have second homeowners, that you can, your house does not have to be your homestead to register. You could be registered in one location. So you could register down here to vote, where your vote has a lot more impact than it might in Houston, and I can understand why you wouldn't want to do it if you have some important races. But look at registering your vote down here. And again, I'm running to improve services, especially public safety, lower taxes, and I'm running because I love this island. I have lived in District 6 for over 22 years. It's the longest place I lived in my life, and I plan on staying here for the rest of my life. So I'm here to fight for you, for this beautiful island that we call Galveston. So again, I ask for your vote on November 3rd. We're all the way down the bottom of the ballot, so you're really going to have to search for us. And I thank you. And I thank you both for giving us this time to speak.
Thank you so much.
With that, we have concluded our day and a half of interviews with the numerous candidates for all of the Galveston City Council seats and the mayor's office, which is what makes this election so important. We argued in an editorial in the Daily News the other day that all local elections are important, but that's especially true in Galveston, where we have kind of a quirky system where everybody's up for election at the same time, and you can have these dramatic shifts in leadership, and maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, but it's a good reason to tune in and get informed and to go out and vote. And I hope you've found yourself better armed to make those decisions when early voting starts on October 13th and Election Day is November 3rd.
And you can register to vote until October 6th. That's the last day to register in this election.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you to the Daily News. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you share those videos. Tell everyone about them. They'll learn so much more about these candidates, these volunteers who are stepping up to make a difference in this beautiful place that we call home. Support your local businesses. They're hurting. They're still hurting. Go out, shop local. You know, there's so many ordering because people are at home and they're ordering, you know, on Amazon and all these things. And just know that I fight hard every day, and so does our team and our board for businesses and their ability to continue doing business on this island. They are the lifeblood of a community. Without our businesses, you don't have the sponsors for the nonprofits. You don't have the sponsors for the teams. You know, they pay taxes here, and we don't want them to leave this island. And another misconception that we talked about earlier is, well, it's business or it's the community. They live in this community. Their children go to school in this community, so they're citizens too. So I challenge you, when you're on and you're buying stuff, shop local first. If you can't get it here locally, shop regionally. If you can't get it regionally, shop the great state of Texas. Thank you guys so much for hanging with us.
Continued coverage of all of these races in the Daily News and at galvnews.com. Thank you.
Thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you. We appreciate your time.